So this is a problem that usually confuses a lot of students because they see 1 over square root of 2 and they're like, I'm not familiar with the square root of 2. When I'm looking into or thinking about the unit circle, I'm familiar with the square root of 3 over 2, square root of 2 over 2, as well as 1/2. But 1 over square root of 2 is not one of those numbers on the unit circle. So how am I going to evaluate this, especially when I don't have a calculator, right? We're assuming you don't have a calculator. And we don't want to use a calculator for this anyways. It's a lot easier not even to have to open up your calculator and go ahead and try to do this. So again, what we're trying to think about, what this question is asking, is the cosine of what angle, right? Because whatever the argument is of your trigonometric function, that is going to be your angle. So the cosine of what angle is equal to 1 over square root of 2? Well, the only angles that we are aware of are, the one on the unit circle where there's a point that lies on the unit circle. So here's a little trick that we want to be able to do. Well, we recognize that we have a radical on the denominator. Remember when you learned in like algebra 2 to rationalize the denominator and you're like, why am I learning this? Like, when do we ever need to rationalize the denominator? Well, check this out, guys. When you go ahead and rationalize the denominator, what you're simply doing is getting your radical off the denominator. 1 times square root of 2 is going to be square root of 2. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is going to be 2. That is now this, right? So you can see, this actually is a point on a unit circle. Now I just need to remember what exact point are we actually thinking about. Now, a lot of students always ask me, Mr. McLogan, should I just memorize the unit circle? Like, just get it out of the way. Like, I know how to do flashcards. I can memorize everything. Like, let me just go ahead and, put in the work and memorize the unit circle. And my quick answer to that is no. Please, for the love of mathematics, do not spend your time trying to memorize the unit circle. You do need to know the first quadrant, right? So you should immediately look at square root of 3 or square root of 2 over 2 and know, oh, I know that angle, that point on the unit circle. Let's go ahead and use radians in this case, and that's going to be a pi over 4. Now, if you use a little bit of intuition here and some understanding of the unit circle as well as the xy axis, you can recognize that, remember, the cosine of what angle, that represents the x-coordinate of a point that lies on your unit circle. So we can see that one of my angles that's going to satisfy this, and again, we are assuming here we're going down the restriction of 0 to 2 pi. That basically represents the unit circle, all right? So we know that one solution in terms of radians is going to be pi over 4. Well, what about the other solution, right? And so trying to memorize the unit circle just in my opinion, just doesn't make any sense, because we know if the x-coordinate has to be positive, right, then it has to be either in the first quadrant or the fourth quadrant. Now, if I want this x-coordinate to be exactly the same, I know it has to be a point down here, right? Because it's going to have the exact same x-coordinate here that we're looking for, which is square root of 2 over 2. So then what is this angle? Well, if we know this is pi over 4, we know halfway around a circle is going to be pi, or 4 pi over 4. Then we know all the way around the circle is going to be an 8 pi over 4. Now notice, this angle here is just pi over 4 short of an 8 pi over 4. So therefore, our final answer in this case is going to be a 7 pi over 4.